What of a morning that brings the day so gently? It bathes and leaves our memories that felt so long ago. I still recall you in all these early hours. If I were there once more to share.
All right. Good evening, everybody. I'd like to call to order the January 19th, 2017, the first of the year, meeting of the Board of Harbor Commissioners. Jeanette, will you please call roll?
Yes, Jim Sloan.
Here.
Bill Spicer.
Here.
Betsy Kramer.
Here.
Merritt McCrae.
Here.
And Lang Sly will be absent tonight.
Okay. Mr. Riedman, any changes to the agenda?
Mr. Chair, no changes tonight.
Okay. First item of business is approval of the minutes from our November 17th, 2016 meeting.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay. The next is the reappointment of Mr. Spicer. Scott?
Yes, good evening, Mr. Chair, Commissioners. Commissioner Spicer was originally appointed in June 2009 and has served 2 terms and signed up. We got him to sign up for a third. So he served on the commission as chair and is currently the vice chair. And he served on the Parking Committee, Chartering and Business Activity Permit Committee, and the RFP Selection Committee. So been a good help in that way. And it's hard to believe that almost 8 years have gone by. So thanks very much for your service and for re-upping. Helps us out a lot.
You're most welcome, and I'm happy that you'll have me back.
Thanks, Bill. We're glad you're back. You're a little lonely up here. I think all of us would think that. So, all right. Next is Director's Report.
Okay, Mr. Chair, Commissioners, since we last met in November, the Council approved an appropriation increase of $20,000 for a marina management software upgrade that we're working on currently. The cost of the new software is $34,000, which was fully budgeted in the 2016 budget, but unfortunately, the $20,000 of that didn't roll over into the 2017 budget, so we had to go back to Council and reallocate the money. So it wasn't a change order or anything like that. It was just a snafu in the accounting. Yes, we had to get it reapproved. And on December 6th, the Council concurred with the Harbor Commission recommendation and voted to cancel the 1985 license agreement between the city and Peter Howarth doing business as the Marine Mammal Center. And the Council's action initiated a 180-day cancellation period, which will be effective June 5th, 2017. So Mr. Howarth has that time to pack up his stuff. Moving on, as I reported to you in November, the Council formed a committee to consider additional off-street parking opportunities for persons living in oversized vehicles that are in the New Beginnings counseling program. And the Council appointed Council members Frank Hotchkiss and Kathy Murillo to serve on that committee, along with Christine Schwartz, the Executive Director of New Beginnings. 2 meetings have taken place with the full committee, and 2 more with the subcommittee consisting of city and county staff members, including myself and Christine Schwartz. And at the direction of the city administrator, staff is working with NBCC to allow up to 5 oversized vehicles to park in the Garden Street lot at night. And then between the hours of 7 p.m. and they have to leave by 7 a.m. And we've tried this before, and it was somewhat successful from between 2007 and 2010. But eventually we got rid of the program in that parking lot. But I believe that the parking lot is better situated for it now with the more activity in the lot due to the entrance to the funk zone. And also New Beginnings really seems to have tightened down on their rules and they have actual monitors that do go out and check on the lots, which they were lacking before, so there was no enforcement. So they've got that taken care of. So we're going to give it another shot. And tentative agenda items for the February meeting are mid-year budget review and year-end forecast. And also Visit Santa Barbara will be presenting a cruise ship economic analysis, an updated version. And that concludes my report, unless there are any questions.
Any questions? Yes, go ahead.
Just one comment. Scott, I appreciate the department's willingness to look again, look at working with New Beginnings and opening that lot up again for those in need. Thank you.
Thank you.
Any other questions? All right. Moving ahead to business services.
Good evening, Mr. Chair and Commissioners. I have a brief business services report for you this month. The first item is regarding our leasing activity. The amount of leasing activity that takes place in the waterfront and on Stearns Wharf fluctuates on an annual basis, some years more than others. It just depends on when folks were originally entered into agreements. And the majority of our existing lessees choose to either renew their leases, or when their lease expires, they choose to negotiate a new lease. So they're very happy with their agreements with the waterfront, and as a result, we have very low turnover, as you folks are aware. It's very rare that we get an open space that we have to go out for a request for proposals on. So in calendar year 2016, it was a pretty heavy year as far as leases were concerned, and you have seen all of these at one point or another. We went through and negotiated 14 separate leases, took them to the Harbor Commission for their recommendation on to City Council, and all of these were eventually approved by City Council and have been fully executed. For calendar year 17, it's a much lighter year. We have 7 leases scheduled. Of course, this can all change if some existing lease is requesting an amendment, or there's a change in ownership, which frequently happens, as it did actually last year on a number of occasions. So 7 leases proposed for calendar year 17, and actually you're going to see the first one up there, the Santa Barbara Fish Market retail lease, later on in tonight's meeting. Second item in the business services report is we like to give you updates on our slip transfer fee activity. And what you'll see here is a chart for the first 6 months of the fiscal year, so July 1st through December 31st. We've had a total of 37 slips transferred, and then we break it down there in between the various slip lengths. So it's a pretty even spread. Everything 35 feet and above, and then 30 feet and below, it's nearly equal. And as a result, those 37 slip transfers have resulted in approximately $537,000 in slip transfer fee revenues. And slip transfer fee revenues are very hard to predict. You don't know what's going to happen from one year to the other. This is probably our most challenging thing to budget for as a revenue. The chart you'll see up on the screen goes back to fiscal year 2007 all the way out through 2016, and at the far end you'll see our year-to-date. So that precarious fall off from 15 down to year-to-date, that's the year-to-date only represents the first 6 months. So it's varied anywhere from a high of a little over $1.2 million in fiscal year 15, and that included 91 slip transfers, which is unheard of. That's our highest year ever. We usually hit about between 55 and 65 on an annual basis. Again, we're at 37 this year, so we're looking okay as far as things are concerned. Obviously, we've almost met our budget, and obviously it depends on meeting the budget on what type of slips are transferring. The larger slips obviously have the higher slip transfer fee. So that's an update, and we'll keep you posted. We'll bring you back in July, I believe. We'll come forward with our rehash of the fiscal year and let you know where all of our revenues stand, as well as expenditures. And that completes my business services report. I'm happy to answer any questions that you have.
All right, any questions? I had one. What is our budget for this year for slip transfers?
$675,000. And so based on the last few years of, I think the fiscal year 2015 was an anomaly. It'd be great to have that every year, but I think that was, you almost have to throw that one out
Right.
when trying to plan out our future budgeting. But I think we will look at increasing that, and we'll meet obviously with the budget committee and talk about those types of items. But that is definitely one that, again, hard to zero in on, but I think it's about time to up that.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, the one thing about that you know is that it probably won't be exactly right. So, okay, any other comments or questions? All right, thank you, Mr. Bossy. Moving on to facilities. Carl?
Good evening, Chair Sloan and Commissioners. Slide. The fall cycle dredging was completed on December 22nd, and tonight I'm going to talk a little bit about the new dredge that completed the work, the production, and the budget. Click again. Nope, go back. Wiggle it around and you'll see a little arrow on the bottom to make the video go. There you go. So this is the new dredge Sandpiper. The original dredge, La Encina, was built in 1953 and was acquired by Pacific Dredge last year. Pacific Dredge invested $2 million, and they rebuilt the pumps and motors, installed new gantry and A-frame hoists, and most importantly, they replaced the entire hull and deck house. The only original part is the lever room at the very top, and that's still the only 1953 vintage component left. The new dredge is called the Sandpiper, and it's remarkable, the increase in productivity. Next slide, please. Do the same thing. Do the same thing. Attaboy. So this is the discharge site. The what does $2 million buy you? Well, in this case, the productivity increased from 6,000 cubic yards a day to 17,000 cubic yards a day. That's an almost threefold increase. The peak day was 28,000 cubic yards. That's the most that's ever been dredged in a single day, and that's roughly half of what the one of the Manson's large dredges can complete in a day down in Ventura Harbor, and that is a giant dredge, about 4 times the size of this. This is the discharge site off the Cabrillo ball fields. There was no swell, no wind, really benign conditions, and it built a peninsula so quickly it just went straight out. It was really impressive what they did and how quickly they can kind of make beach out there. So Pacific Dredge, I think, is very pleased with their investment, and the dredge has done a terrific job, finished the work in about 6 days, record time, and we really look forward to them. They're at the very first cycle of the 6th cycle for the 3-year contract, so we look forward to them coming back. Next slide, please. This is a little bit of an interesting slide, a little busy, but I'll go through it briefly. Scott and I were talking last week about dredge funding used to be rather tenuous, and in that very top column from 2001 to 2006, dredge funding appropriated by Congress went from $2.2 million to $1 million over the course of a few years, not even adequate to dredge the harbor in 2005. Since 2007 or 2008, I should say, it's been very consistent, from just under $2 million to currently $2.695 million, which is adequate to do the work. I think that is attributable to Scott and Scott's predecessor, John Bridley, working closely with CMANC, the California Maritime and Navigation Commission. We completed an economic impact analysis a few years ago that demonstrated that the local, state, and federal impact from dredging from Santa Barbara Harbor is significant, which really compels the Corps to continue investing in our infrastructure in the harbor. And we have a close working relationship with the Corps of Engineers. We work closely with them every year, developing their budget, managing these kind of projects. And what's really nice is when you see this level of productivity, the contractor makes a lot of money. He can come back and resubmit bids at a very competitive price, and that's really what the Corps likes to see. So they can get this job done for, it's about as cheap as you can dredge anywhere. And this is an electric dredge, mind you, which is a little unconventional, not as competitive. So things are looking pretty good for dredging in Santa Barbara Harbor. Next slide, please. Our other project tonight is we just completed the Marina One replacement project, Phase 7, consisting of E, F, and G fingers. Next slide. We started with E and then G fingers, the 2 smaller ones with 25-foot slips. They were completed in 3 weeks each, which is, again, record time. That's very, 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 very fast to demolish a dock, install new docks, and install utilities. And this is getting boats in and out at the same time. So it was very, very impressive. F finger was a little bit bigger and had an extension, so that took about another week. So that went very quickly, and we're really pleased with the outcome. And just as a reminder, this is a unique project that all vessels that are displaced during construction have all been relocated in Santa Barbara, and that's from Phase 1 through Phase 7, so we're kind of proud of that. Next slide. F-Finger was expanded to increase our berthing in Santa Barbara Harbor by 4 additional 35-foot slips, as you can see kind of in the highlighted there from the plans. This is the first slip addition since Phase 2 P-Finger, where we added 2 50-foot slips and 2 30-foot slips. There's a really remarkable return on investment, and it's a shame we don't have more open water in Santa Barbara Harbor to add new slips. Just from slip fees alone, the return on investment is about 7 years just for on the capital costs. And if you include transfer fees, which may happen once these are assigned, it's about 4 years. So that's very fast. And like I said, I wish we had more time, more water space to build more slips. It's probably the last opportunity to add slips in Santa Barbara Harbor until we reconfigure one of the marinas 2, 3, or 4. They're pretty old, and that's something we'll probably be looking into in another decade or so. This was Phase 7 that's completed. We have one more Phase 8. We'll do it in about a year, and that'll be complete the entire project. Next slide, please. As a reminder, this project's been funded with a $14 million loan from the Department of Boating and Waterways, and the loan functions kind of as a home equity line of credit. The total construction contract is about $12 million, and we'll wind up borrowing about $10 to $11 million, depending on the FY 2018-2019 budget. And we've talked a bit about how much, if or of all of Phase 8, we're going to pay for ourselves to try and keep the overall debt and the debt service down. And that concludes my report, and I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Any questions? Yes.
Thanks for the report, Carl. I did have a question when it said until the existing marinas are reconfigured. What do you have in mind on reconfiguring?
Chair Sloan, Madam Commissioner Kramer, we don't have anything in mind, but someday we would have to do something. We're one of the few harbors left in the state that has 20-foot slips. They're fully subscribed, so there's really no incentive or inspiration for us to change anything at this time, but something will change inevitably, probably go to concrete docks. So that's why I said within the next decade, I think our successors should look carefully at how it looks in the future.
But no current plans? Or
no current plans.
Just twinkle in your eyes.
Yeah, that's right.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Mr. Treiberg, thank you. Real quick, the rebuilt dredge Sandpiper, is this going to be its home harbor?
Chair Sloan, Commissioner Spicer, that's correct. Unless they get some other work, they'll go out someplace else, but they'll keep it here between the fall and the spring cycle, and probably through the summer. If they do get other work, they'd probably go and do it and then bring it back to Santa Barbara. Great. They have an electrical hookup here and everything else, so it's a little easier for them to keep it there, and we kind of horse trade dredging for summertime mooring.
Excellent. Thank you, Carl.
Uh-huh.
Okay. Anything else? All right. Thank you, Mr. Treiberg. Moving right along here to Harbor Operations Report. Mick?
Good evening, Mr. Chair and Commissioners. I thought I'd start with something festive this evening. It's only been less than a month since our Parade of Lights. It was a great event. We had 30 boats this year. It was more than we've had in several years. We were lingering 25, 27, and we hit the 30 mark this year, which is always, for us, a threshold to celebrate. The theme, as you may remember, was a Wild West holiday. And it was a really interesting evening. Fog kept coming in and out in patches, thick fog, and it was really kind of cool because the boats sort of threaded their way through it. It was crystal clear down by East Beach where they came by the judging stand, but there were places where it was, ground zero visibility out in the parade route. So it was like elephants with their trunks and tails, and they closed up the gaps, and it was a beautiful parade, and everybody had a great time. And it was, of course, capped by a raucous awards party at the Maritime Museum. It was great to be back at the museum. Last year we were off-site at the Veterans Building, and although it was an honor to be there, it was tough to get all the boaters to go there. So it was great for the boaters to be back at the Maritime Museum. We also had a sort of a record-setting Santa's Village event at 3 o'clock. Over 400 kids showed up, kids with their families, to see Santa and play in the snow. And as a note to ourselves, since we had 200 goodie bags, we're going to have to double down on our efforts to make sure the kids have goodie bags next year, expecting that kind of turnout. So, who won? That's always the operative question. So our first place award winners this year included the Perseverance, that's pictured here, in the commercial fishing category. In the commercial other category was Channel Cat. Arboleda won the power category. Could Be Trouble won the sail category. And Paddle Boat Casino won the human-powered category. And the Perseverance, again shown here, won the overall grand prize, which included a really extensive gift package, a prize package, plus $500 cash. So especially a note to other commercial fishermen. I love Bernard Friedman. I like to see him win this almost every year. But all you got to do is decorate your boat to the theme and get out there, and that's one of the less populated categories. And the prize packages, even for second and third place, have $100 bills in them, and all kinds of sponsors, restaurants and hotels, and a lot of local retailers in the General Harbor commercial area. Ocean Air contributes. Deepwater Hunter, all kinds of restaurants. The Endless Summer. Anyway, they're really robust packages, and I encourage folks to participate next year. In fact, on that note, if you want anybody listening or reading this staff report, if they want to mark their calendars now, it is December 10th of this year, actually. December 10th, Sunday, December 10th will be I believe it'll be the 32nd annual Parade of Lights. So I have a couple fisheries issues I wanted to chat with you about tonight, if you will. As we all know, our commercial fishing fleet, it's about 60 boats supporting 200 families. They have unique lifestyles, unique profession, and they have unique needs for everything from gear to information. And so what we did a couple of years ago is we started a fisherman's listserv, and what the department has done is try to collect email contacts from our fishermen, from individual members of the commercial fishing fleet, and I've got them all in one contact list. And what I do is if the ice machine needs repairs, or if there's low dissolved oxygen in the harbor that could affect the storage of crab and lobster and what have you, I'll send out an email blast. Well, of the recent, we've discovered that we're getting a lot of bounces, if you will. We're getting a lot of messages back undeliverable, and so we've undertaken an outreach campaign. There was an article in Dock Lines you may have seen about this, and I wanted to let the commission know, and via the commission, the public know that I'm doing everything I can to expand that list and get rid of the ones that come back bounced. I've had some good success. I think we've added a dozen individuals since we started this campaign. But just as a reminder, if any commercial fisherman wants to make sure they're on that listserv, all they got to do is email me at this email address, mcronman@santabarbaraca.gov, or they can call my office directly right to my desk at 897-2587, and I'd be happy to add them to that list. On another fisheries note, several years ago, I see Dan Geron in the audience. He and I go way back on this issue. The county established a couple of funds that were derived from revenues required of the offshore oil companies as part of their development and production offshore. And if my memory serves me correctly, I'm sure Dan could correct this too, they were part of final development plan approval for a lot of those operations offshore. And one of them was called a Fisheries Enhancement Fund, and it used to be extremely robust, had close to $1 million in it. And through negotiations with the oil companies, with the county and the oil companies, they agreed to front load a bunch of that money into priority projects, like the ice machine was number one. We've had that since the early 90s. The interpretive plaques along the breakwater, hoist number 2 on the pier, those were all priority projects at the time. And as the funds winnowed down, and they come out to about $10,000, $12,000 a year, the primary focus for several years has been for providing fishermen safety equipment grants. And I met with Kathy Pfeiffer, who manages this program. She works for the county's energy division. And she asked me to help with some outreach because not a lot of folks know about this, and not a lot of folks are applying for it. And so commercial fishermen can get their life rafts repacked. They can get batteries for their EPIRBs, their emergency position indicating radio beacons. They can get new EPIRBs. They can get immersion suits and what have you. There's a $500 maximum grant per fisherman, per qualifying fisherman, and it's a first-come, first-served program. But if folks are interested in it, they can contact Kathy at the county's Energy Division at 568-2507 or Kathy PM, at co.santa-barbara.ca.us. So obviously this will be incorporated into our report, and anybody has any questions about this, they can call me. We also have these on the front counter at the Harbor Master's office, so folks can pick them up right there if they wish. And so finally, it's actually a good news story in the end, but pretty scary. If you hadn't read about it or seen it on TV, which most of you have, it probably comes as no surprise, but about 1:50 p.m. on New Year's Eve, a 2016 Passat was attempting to park on the wharf. It was a rental car, a brand new rental car at that. And it was a rainy weather, and the driver's foot slipped off the brake and onto the accelerator, and he jumped a car stop and went right into the ocean on the east side of Stearns Wharf. There's a lot of good news in this unfortunate story. Number one, the individual airbags went off. He only landed in 12 feet of water, so the pressure was not so great as he was still able to open the door. So he opened the door, found his way out. Not pretty chilly water, like 54-degree water, but he made it to a ladder on Stearns Wharf, and climbed up the east side of the wharf. The other bit of really good news is that he had just dropped his young son and his wife off at the ice cream store. So what could have been an extraordinary tragedy turned out to be an unfortunate event, if you'll allow me to use that expression. And we actually have a video to show you. This is taken from our Stearns Wharf South video pointing north of this event. And I would encourage you to look right there at that white Passat. And here he goes. He's headed south on the wharf. He's going to turn in right now to park. And there he goes. It happened fast, and I know you want to see it again. So here is the second viewing. So on January 2nd, Smitty's Towing brought out a big rig, if you will, at the behest of State Farm Insurance, that insured the gentleman's regular automobiles at his home. And they did an expert job. They put divers in the water, and they strung a big strap right through the windows of the passenger and driver's side and hooked it up and lifted it out and held it above the water for a little while so a lot of the water could drain out of it. I apologize. I have that picture too. I'm sorry. My apologies. I know how to get rid of that. Stand by, because this is worthy. That should have gone. Hold on. Stand by. I apologize, Mr. Chair. This will only take a sec. That it's already taken. I did. Okay. Sorry, I clicked the dot instead of the words. I've been informed. And there's what it looked like when the vehicle came out of the water. And they held it there for quite a while, I'd say 10 minutes, to drain out an extraordinary amount of water. In fact, they tipped it in two different directions because the trunk was full of water. But ultimately, it was placed safely on the wharf, and then from there onto a flatbed truck, and away it went. So, again, this is an unfortunate event that turned out fantastic in terms of pure outcome. So, and with that, I would conclude my report. I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Thanks for your report, Mick. Do you know if the car was able to be salvaged? I was curious on reading about it.
Madam Chair, Commissioner Kramer, I'm not positive. Talking to the folks at Smitty's, I don't know the real outcome of that. They said not likely, but I think one can rest assured that it parted out at pretty good prices since everything was on it was brand new. So,
thanks.
Sure.
Thanks for your report.
Sure.
Anything else?
Yes, I have a comment. First, I want to make sure that recognition is given to Chuck's Waterfront Grill, who fed all those wet sailors as they came off the water, making their way back into the harbor for the festivities after the parade. I think it's great that they did it, and I think they definitely deserve a lot of recognition for having done it. And then second, I have a question for Mr. Cronman. Can you tell us about the Golden Bilge Pump Award and who wins it and why? Why you have it?
Commissioner McCray, thank you. It's almost like I had queued you up for this, but I didn't. But thank you for reminding me. The Golden Bilge Pump Award is an award that we came up with several years ago. You know how 8th graders get participation awards? Well, this is the adult version of a participation award. It's awarded to the boat that gets the least number of points, according to the judges on Stearns Wharf during the Parade of Lights. So the worse you do, the better your chances of getting the Golden Bilge Pump Award. Now, it actually is a bilge pump that's been spray painted gold, and I have to give credit to Greg Lowe. He's a member of Carl's staff on the maintenance team. He's our heavy equipment operator who puts together, it's really one of the most cherished awards. It puts together this whole contraption that it lights up and it turns and it strobes and it does this and that. And so, yeah, it's the last award we give out at the award ceremony, and thank you for reminding me, because the guy who got it this year couldn't believe it. He was calling his wife from the lobby of the harbor master's office, jumping up and down. He was truly excited, so we were equally excited for him.
Any other comments, Bill? I had a couple. First off, thanks for the update. I was putting the date December 10th in my calendar while you were giving that. On the listserv, do we keep emails on file for billing records? Is there a way to cross-reference it that way?
I don't, Commissioner Sloan, I don't think we keep emails on file. In fact, I think we have an open door invitation for folks to give us their emails, and that's still kind of an ongoing process. Plus, it's hard for me to know who's fishing and who isn't. I mean, there's standard folks I know are fishermen, but there are a whole lot of folks out there who are commercial fishermen who I don't know. Right. And so I've just sort of tried to reverse it and have them contact us. But it's a fair question, and maybe I can look into that.
Yeah, I was just trying to figure out ways to help.
Sure.
Your
I think we have close to 80 or 90 folks on the list now.
Okay.
So I'm not sure how much more we can, how much more robust it'll get, but we'll try.
Okay. And then on the safety equipment grants and things like that, have we put notices on the gates and everything with this?
We have.
Okay, great. And since we were talking about the car going off Stearns Wharf, could we get a quick update on the new fencing and when we expect that?
Chair Sloan, we included that project in our FY 2018 capital improvement program, which will be funded as part of the FY 18-19 budget preparation and hopefully approval by council in June. So sometime latter part of the summer.
Okay, so that we could expect it this summer.
Yeah,
next
summer, fall.
Sometime.
Have to go out to bid.
Okay. Okay, and then one last thing, Mr. Cronman. Could you give an update on the storm situation and if there's any precautions that slip holders should take in the next couple of days on that?
Mr. Chair, Commissioner Sloan, thank you for asking. We are pretty shored up. What we expect is a big swell on Saturday. That's especially what we're looking for right now. The rain event is something that we basically make sure that dinghies and boats aren't sinking. But what boaters can do is they can go down to their boats before the big swell hits and secure their lines, make sure their fenders are in place, double up on lines if you have to, make sure there's no chafing going on. Other than that, we're ready. We've got sandbags. We've got K-rail at the western end of the yacht club parking lot. We're doubling up on Harbor Patrol staff on Saturday because we expect there to be a whole lot of surfers out there and folks are going to want to walk up on that berm, and we've placed signs on the berm telling folks to stay off of that. And so if it gets crazy, what we've done in the past, when I say crazy, that's folks going by a do not pass this sign on the breakwater because it's a dangerous, it's an advisory for high surf. Right. We've had folks who passed that sign in the past and got knocked off the breakwater and injured. We may, if it gets really crowded and people aren't paying attention to that sign, we may ask PD to come down and stage an officer. That's worked very well in the past. But all in all, in terms of protecting the harbor and getting the word out to boaters, and we've got a lot of folks convinced to come in from the anchorage, I think we're ready.
Okay, so the takeaway is boaters, check on your lines. Other people, just obey the signage and stay off the breakwater if there's high surf.
Stay off the breakwater, stay off the berm, obey the signage, shore up your lines, and if you're in the anchorage, make sure you get in before, I would get in now, quite frankly.
Right.
But thank you for asking. Those are
the swell
important
direction, are we worried about surge in the harbor?
They're predicting 282 to 285, but the size of the swell is so great that, yes, it's very possible. I think the Sandspit might, be world class again, but surge in the harbor, very likely. We've moved the bait barge off its moorings and tied it to SN tie to make sure it doesn't tweak and twist and what have you, but it's not entirely impossible that we'll get some surge in the harbor from this as well.
Great, thank you. Commissioner Kramer?
I want one more comment. I think credit should be given to Merritt McRae for being a judge at the Parade of Lights and his newcomer to the Harbor Commission. And I sat at the table with him, and he was spectacular.
Thank you. It was great having you all there. The VIP party up at the Vintners was spectacular, and you folks were part of it. You know better than I, so thanks for being there.
Okay.
Item 7, Cabrillo Boulevard Bridge Construction Update. Recommendation that Harbor Commission receive a presentation from the City of Santa Barbara Public Works Department on the status of the Cabrillo Boulevard Bridge Replacement Project.
Chair Sloan, anybody who's been to Lower State Street has noticed all the construction activity over the last few years. Principal Planner Adam Hendel is here with us tonight from Public Works. He's been managing the project from the get-go for the Cabrillo Bridge Replacement Project, and I think it's getting close to the finish. So here's an update from Adam.
Thank you, Mr. Chair and Commissioners. As Carl mentioned, I'm Hendel, Principal Engineer in the Public Works Department. I was here about 2 years ago when this project had just started. I'm happy to say that we're at the end of the project, and there's a little improvement on the project. So some of the goals on the project are to replace the
Oh.
two
Mic's not on. I'm sorry.
We were successfully able to use Highway Bridge Program grant funds for the replacement. Excuse me 1 second. And another one of our goals is protecting and enhancing Mission Creek during the bridge project. During both of the main stages of the project, we had dewatering and other measures to protect the creek during construction. And then the biggest goal of the project that we've been experiencing the last 2 years is keeping Cabrillo Boulevard open during construction. We've been able to maintain one lane in each direction throughout construction, which was quite a challenge, but we've been successful so far. Some of the benefits of the project, again, it was a 100-year-old bridge we've replaced. It was originally built in 1913. And safety improvements as part of the project, wider sidewalks both on the north side and the ocean side of the project, and improved sidewalk and pedestrian areas, enhanced water flow, and improvements to the banks of Mission Creek. So here's a photo of what the bridge looked like before construction, and you can see a very narrow sidewalk and a chain link fence on the north side. And this is a time-lapse presentation of all the stages of construction, starting with stage 1, which was some of the preps that we did upstream of the bridge, some sewer line relocation work we did in the street, and then stage 2 was the mountainside of the project, and you can see the different stages of that construction. That's some of the creek diversion, demolition of the north half of the bridge, Powell foundation work, constructing the bridge abutments, some transition walls, more abutments, and center pile work. You can see the diversion was removed in November, and the bridge deck, which was a precast bridge. Some of the finish work up at the street level. And then March of 2016 is when we finished the north side of the bridge. And then moved into stage 3 of construction last year. This is the stage we're in today, the ocean side of the project. Lots of big equipment. You can see some of the vehicles on Cabrillo Boulevard there. again, a precast bridge deck that we erected with cranes. This was just last month in December, and then currently as we speak in January. So up next on this project, we're finishing the bridge deck and the railings, and going to be moving into wrapping up utility relocations. We have a transmission gas line we're relocating, a reclaimed water line we're relocating. Just see if we can stop that. And then we're going to be paving the roadway and looking to reopen some of the lanes on Cabrillo Boulevard. Right now we're targeting for March of this year. That's just about 2 months away. Weather dependent. At this stage in the project, hopefully we don't have any large spans of rain. If it were to rain for a couple weeks every single day, then that would create some issues. If it rains and then stops for a few days, we can keep working. Currently, the city is looking into the Beachway Truss Bridge, which is the temporary bridge that was built for construction purposes, and looking into permitting and planning to keep that thing more long-term. So with that, I can answer any questions you may have. Sure, thank you.
It's amazing to watch it here after living it. You know, it seems like nothing ever. You know, it's always construction. But now, from the aerial view, you get to see the progress being made. So that was great. Thank you very much.
Sure.
Okay, item 8, Goleta Beach Sand Renourishment Project. Recommendation that Harbor Commission receive a presentation from the County of Santa Barbara Community Services Department on the Goleta Beach Sand Renourishment Project.
Chair Sloan and Commissioners, the county and the city of Santa Barbara have worked together on a collaborative effort to take sand from West Beach to Goleta Beach several times in the last decade, most recently 2010. Tonight, we have Dan Giroir with Amick Foster Wheeler with us to talk a little bit about the project. And I'd like to note that Jill Van Wee is also here. She's the Capital Projects Manager for the County of Santa Barbara Community Services Department. They're going to give the presentation. It's kind of their project. They'll talk a little bit about the waterfront side of it, and I'll chime in and add some information if need be. But it's kind of an interesting project on both sides of it. Thank you.
Mr. Chair, members of the Commission, it's a pleasure to be here tonight. Thanks to Carl for being so cooperative with the county on this project. It's a great public benefit project for both the county and the city, so it's a good partnership. Basically, the county is tasked with keeping the currently exposed revetment at the west end of Goleta Beach Park covered by Coastal Commission conditions of approval for permitting the revetment. As you all remember, the March 2014 storm, which no doubt is fresh in your memories, and then the following El Nino have really done a number on the sand supply at Goleta Beach. So the county is wrestling with that and working with the city now to move sand up there. And the project activities we're planning now are going to occur in 2 phases. Phase 1 is finished at the harbor. That's excavation of about 3,000 cubic yards of sand, some temporary storage at the beach, and shipment of some sand to Goleta Beach via truck. So the project benefits, obviously, for the harbor in West Beach. It is maintaining a quiet water area within the harbor and maintaining inner harbor depth that's not covered by the federal dredging program in the outer harbor. So it's a benefit to the harbor. For Goleta Beach, it's protecting the park, the upcoming swell, for example, from erosion and damage from wave attack. It's providing safe beach access over this revetment. And, you know, sand supply varies widely. Sometimes the revetment's 8 feet tall, sometimes it's 3. So provide safe access and maintaining an aesthetically pleasing beach. Here's some shots of the Goleta Beach revetment. It varies daily and weekly, and maybe if we actually have some rain this year and we get a big infusion of sediment, it'll be buried on its own. We'll see. So you see one shot here from May and one from January at the west end of Goleta Beach Park. Here we are down at the harbor beginning the excavation. We started by, I think it's the bait shack, right, Carl, down at in the inner harbor there, excavating that area. Took about 3,000 cubic yards out using various types of heavy equipment. You can see here a excavator and front-end loaders working on the beach, and you see there on the left picture your dredge yard in the background with the sand storage pile next to the dredge yard. Here we are loading some of the dump trucks. We did encounter one challenge. The original route for the fill was to go up Castillo, but with the larger haul trucks, that turn was a little tight, so we ended up going reversing direction and going to the harbor, to Garden Street. And the city staff in Public Works was incredibly cooperative in amending the hall plan to deal with that. So, as you know, with all permits we deal with in the coastal zone and the ocean, there is a myriad of environmental protections in place. We have pre-construction biological surveys, including briefing to the construction crews. We delay work start if sensitive species, primarily the western snowy plover, are present. So there's full-time construction monitoring and daily biological monitoring. Equipment is required to avoid water contact, particularly at Goleta Beach. There's relocation of beach rack, so there's lots of good fly habitat to feed those hungry birds. Removal of trash and debris from any of the sand, and we only operate during low tides to minimize that potential for water contact. So here you see sand being delivered to Goleta Beach, temporary marshaling of 1,000 cubic yards of sand at Goleta Beach. We plan on putting it over the revetment next week. We're going to let this first big swell pass so the sand sticks a little longer and rely on the revetments to protect the beach, and we hope we're successful in that. We see here again, our permit conditions require us to cover the sand because we wouldn't want the rain to wash the sand onto the beach or into the parking lot, another permit condition. So community outreach, working with Carl was very helpful, I want to say again, that we reached out to all the affected property owners proximate to the harbor, the hotel owners, et cetera, all received mailed notices, signage was placed, and the haul route was approved by the city. So it's an important component that no surprises in a project like this, right? You see here the haul routes. I won't review them. We all know our town. But the challenges we encountered were such that Public Works was, again, helpful, and we encountered no problems whatsoever in the hauling and transport or excavation of sand. You see here 2 AMEC Foster Wheeler environmental monitors there on the left, and a flagman governing traffic exiting the harbor there on the right. So the project timeline, we have completed the initial excavation that occurred the week of January 9th. We are now storing sand at Goleta Beach. We plan to deposit it over the revetment next week, and we plan to start excavation again for another 3,000 cubic yards the week of February 6th. We timed that with the minus tides. Obviously, we can get better sand, increase your harbor depth, and not have to work over such a long area of the harbor if we work at minus tides. And I think Carl and us, we were both delighted that there seemed to be more sand available than we had thought. So we had to cover less area with work, which also decreases disturbance to the public. And that being said, that's my presentation. I did want to note, if you folks would simply reverse the hose on your dredge, run that up the coast to Goleta Beach, that 29,000 cubic yards in 6 days would be possibly more beneficial to Goleta Beach. And then it would just be right back down here again for you to work with.
Well,
so I'm available for any questions.
if you could catch it on the way down and keep it
I'm
up there.
just saying, catching, is problematic in the coastal zone. We won't go there. But I do think that dredge, I have dredge envy. Because our dump trucks, compared to that dredge, it's like a firing a pop gun at Godzilla. But, we appreciate the city's cooperation.
Yeah. Well, thank you very much for the report. Any questions? Yeah.
I have several comments. First of all, congratulations on the great win-win, you two. I think that's a wonderful thing that you managed to both find some sand for Goleta Beach and improve that quiet water area back behind Sea Landing. Looking more long, I've been a Santa Barbara resident for a lot of years. Looking more long term, before 1980, the beach up there in front of UCSB and Goleta Beach was quite extensive. And in addition, there was a tremendous kelp bed out in front of there. And I think that, I'm pretty sure it buffered a lot of the swell that came in there. And there are other things, other aspects that cause the sand to diminish. There's less flow of sand out of the streams and so forth. But I think, in a large part, the lack of kelp that occurred since about 1984 hastened the departure of all the sand in front of Goleta Beach. There used to be volleyball courts and 100 yards in front of the cliffs where the stairs are, right by Bio 2 at UCSB. And I'd like to plant the seed to, at some point, consider actually putting some hard substrate out off of Goleta Beach that would foster the growth of kelp. And what happened there was the kelp holdfasts had grabbed whatever loose rock there was there and had made a giant mat. And then you could see that mat torn up on the beach in like 84 and 85. So there's actually nothing for the kelp to start on out there anymore that really sticks. It'll pick up a small rock, a string will grow, the swell will come, and it'll carry it to the beach. So that's the seed I'd like to plant, to start to consider maybe putting some larger riprap spaced out there like Wheeler North Reef is down off of, down below Dana Point. Thank you.
Chair Sloan, Commissioner McRae, there's a joint powers agency comprised of 2 counties and cities along Ventura and Santa Barbara called Beacon, Beach Erosion Authority for Clean Oceans and Nourishment. And Jill Dan and I will be there tomorrow morning. They'll be talking about this project. But they have supported a project by a researcher out of Seattle who's actually beginning to install some artificial holdfasts out there right now as we speak. It's been 10 years in the making to get the permits and everything going with the exact same theory that you just articulated, and that is to kind of restore the rocky substrate or the hardscape that holdfast can attach to. So it's going to be interesting. I believe there's a presentation tomorrow morning about it at this Beacon meeting. And as it comes to fruition and the project develops, I'd be happy to come back and report on it in the future.
And just one further comment, Mr. Chair. What really helped Goleta Beach in the 70s, and I remember that as a young man, the beach stuck out 400 feet in front of that point at the west end. Mm-hmm. But it was the 69 floods which did some damage up north, which brought millions of cubic yards of sediment into the surf zone, and the Refugio fire also played a role. Not that we're hoping for fire or floods, but right. Goleta Beach would probably welcome such an event.
Any other questions? I had one. How many truckloads is 1,000 cubic yards?
Depends on the size of the truck, but 100, a typical dump truck, 10 cubic yards, but we used some 14 cubic yard haul trucks this time, so it varied, and we varied the mix of trucks. A lot of that was affected by the contractor, so it's anywhere from 80 to 100.
Great. Thank you. All right. Anything else? Thank you very much. Appreciate it. Great.
And again, we just want to say thanks to your staff for being incredibly cooperative with the county.
Good. Thank you. Appreciate it. Okay. Next item.
Okay, item 9, appeal of slip permit termination for slip 3A15, Mr. Jerome Betts. Recommendation that the Harbor Commission consider an appeal of a slip permit termination for Mr. Jerome Betts at slip 3A15 in Santa Barbara Harbor and take action to either A, uphold the termination, or B, uphold Mr. Betts' appeal.
Great, thank you. I understand. We have Mr. Betts here to speak. Go ahead, please.
I got behind because I was fishing lobsters this year. We started out with supposed to be a normal season, and this year fell off. So the boat I was working on, the Grizzly, he laid me off the first week in November. And he still owes me about $800.
It's not muted.
He's only paid me $300 to $800. But right now I have $1,300.
Oh, I see it. Okay.
That I can put in there if I get reinstated, and I have some other promising of work that I've done in the past that haven't paid me either. Plus, I've made a couple of sea urchin nets, so I'm getting paid for those. So I could become current with regular slip fees by Wednesday, but if I have to pay the visitor slip fees, then I'll have to vacate the slip and start making payments that way. Mm-hmm. And I've been in the harbor about 41 years now. I've been a fisherman for the same length of time. But this lobster year has been incredibly hard on the fishery this year. So it slowed down, so I got laid first. Old guys get laid off first, even though I can still tie nets and pull lines and hook the buoys. It's slow going. So I was hoping to get a little reprieve here from you people.
Okay. Thank you.
Good evening, Mr. Chair. I am going to first go over our process and take us through exactly why we're here this evening. I just want to start off by saying a slip permit termination for unpaid fees is an action the department only rarely undertakes. Most late slip fee issues are resolved by department staff and the slip permittee well in advance of a termination letter. As far as history, the last termination for unpaid slip fees took place in January of 2014, And before that, it was November of 2007. I should let you know that those terminations were also appealed to the Harbor Commission, and that the Harbor Commission denied both of those appeals and upheld the terminations. Now, again, as I said it, I would like to review the commission the department's billing process, and then discuss the events that have led to this item coming before the commission this evening. Our slip billing process is very gracious to our slip permittees. They make up the harbor. They're obviously an important part of our harbor. The process is a simple one that allows numerous opportunities for slip permittees to make their slip to pay their slip fees. First off, our slip fees are due on the first of the month. So on the second of the month, they are considered late, but we provide a 14-day grace period up until the 15th of the month until a $35 late fee is assessed. Then what we do shortly after the 15th of the month, depending on exactly when that day falls, we send out a first late slip fee notice that basically reminds folks, hey, we noticed that you haven't paid. Can you check your records? Come on in and pay, alerting them to the issue. If slip fees have not been paid in full by the end of that month, so that's 30 days past due, the department mails a 30-day letter to the slip permittee, which notifies the slip permittee that if payment is not received in full by the first of the following month, then the slip permit will be terminated. So they've still got a good deal of time to address the situation. Around the 45th day after the slip fee was originally due, we also send what's called our third notice, and that lets the person know basically you have 15 days until your slip will be terminated, and you have to pay in full by the conclusion of the start of the next month. Finally, a notice of termination is sent, and that's only sent if all due slip fees are not received by the first of the following month, which is now 60 days past due. The slip is officially terminated, and a letter is sent to the slip permittee informing them of that decision. From that point, the slip permittee is provided 10 calendar days from the date of the decision to request a waiver of termination from the waterfront director. And these guidelines are all, well, at least this last one is outlined in the city's municipal code. So they're allowed to submit a termination waiver request to the waterfront director. The waterfront director, I believe, has another 10 days to decide on that and make a determination. If the determination is to deny that waiver, the final option for the slip permittee, they have 10 days from the date of the decision by the waterfront director, in this case a denial, to then appeal to the Harbor Commission. I should let you know that the Harbor Commission can uphold the appeal or deny the slip permittee's appeal, as noted in our staff report, and the Harbor Commission's decision is final. So this is the final resting place. So the decision comes down to the Harbor Commission at that point. So it's a very lengthy process. Again, we don't just send out letters. We're calling. We're emailing. If their phones are out, we're out at the boat, posting notices, trying to get a hold of them, trying to get a hold of people. Because this is obviously the last thing anybody wants. As far as payment history for slip 3A15, the current permittee transferred to that slip on July 1st of 2007. Shortly thereafter, in December, the first late slip fee notice was sent. So this has been something that's been taking place for quite some time. Over the last 4 years, we have sent 42 separate late slip fee notices. 48 months, 42 notices. You can do the math. As for the timeline, this is our timeline. As far as why we're here today, that it was the missed fee and a slip fee in October, and it goes through the chronology there. So finally, as I stated, in addition to the letters, we do try and go out and visit folks, talk to them, email them, call them, do whatever we can to make sure they're aware of what's taking place. And unfortunately, hasn't been successful. And our staff recommendation is recommending that the Harbor Commission deny Mr. Betts' appeal and uphold the termination of slip permit 3A15. And that completes my presentation, and we'd be happy to answer any questions that you might have.
Any questions?
I saw that about a year and a half ago you actually accepted his appeal, Mr. Betts' appeal.
Yes, Mr. Chair, Commissioner McCray, that's accurate. Under my authorities being the director, I waived it at the staff level before taking it here. So that one, we just made it go away.
So I must admit I have an awful lot of compassion for people who work in fisheries as crewmen where the fishery has been rationalized, where the boat owner was given an exclusive permit to harvest and the crews got nothing. So I really feel strongly for Mr. Betts' current situation that he finds himself in, but I do have a question for him that I think is important. If you were to find that you were really not able to keep up with the slip fees in a long-term fashion, a liveaboard slip in Santa Barbara is a very, very valuable commodity. And you had to choose what to do. Would you keep your boat and forego the slip, or would you sell the boat with the slip in order to regain that value?
I would like to retain the value of the slip. That's why I came here. But I'll still be using the harbor as a fisherman, because that's still what I do. But I basically sleep on the boat. I've been paying liveaboard for about the last 25 years, and I pay the late penalty because usually people pay me slow, and I end up having to pay the penalties like it shows there on the chart. But this time, the guy said he was going to pay me before Thanksgiving, and he ended up still not paying me. So, he gave me another $100 tonight when he came in, but not the balance of what he owes me. So I'm kind of at his mercy, and I haven't lined up any other work because I signed up to work for him for the entire season, which goes until, April, or the middle of March.
So if we were tonight to allow you to be able to hold on to your slip for a few months or a month, you would, and you realize you probably couldn't keep up with payments, you would be willing to sell the boat and the slip and recover that fee, make the harbor a slip transfer fee, and save yourself a lot of money?
That would be the ideal thing. Is I would be able to make it till summer and then sell the slip this summer, and then make other arrangements somewhere else, and not at the harbor or live on one of the work boats that I work on.
Thank you.
Mr. Chair, Commissioner McCray, if you'll allow me a point of information. The municipal code prescribes that a slip permittee may not transfer a slip unless they're in good standing, and the issuance of a slip permit termination notice renders them not in good standing. And respectfully, the recommendations before you tonight are related specifically to the termination, whether to uphold the appeal or not uphold the appeal. It has been our experience in the past that when you condition it one way or another, it can be problematic. Last time that happened, I think we all know what happened. The individual came in and transferred the slip the next day but that's a long story. But anyway, I just want to let you know that you can't transfer a slip while a slip permit termination letter is out there. Okay, so respectfully recommend making a decision on one of the two recommendations before you.
Thank you. Commissioner Kramer?
Yeah, I appreciate hearing the department's policies and so forth, but and I also appreciate the amount of effort that the department takes to not have a termination. But I think there should be consideration given to the person, to the amount of time that Mr. Betts has been a slip holder, and also the consideration of the fact that he has helped from what I've observed, at least in the annual cleanups, he's been very conscientious and so forth. And problems happen. Payment problems happen to most of us, at least. And I think that there should be a possibility of, say, maybe 6 months, if he can make the payments. I mean, to get current. I don't know his financial situation. I don't think it. I hope that it doesn't have to be cut and dried. If it were cut and dried, I think I would have to vote against. I'd vote in favor of the appeal. So I'm presenting it back. Could there be a 6-month period of grace period, so to speak?
I think I'd come current by Wednesday with regular slip fees, but not with the visitor status that I'm on now.
Right.
But regular slip fees, I'm short like $300, and I should have that by Wednesday.
I would help him. I don't know the man, but I would help him. That helps everybody.
Okay.
I'll cut a check tonight.
So I'd like to, I mean, would that be a feasible thing, Mr. Reedman?
Mr. Chair, Commissioner Kramer, just as you think about your decision again, I just on the financial side of things, and again, this is not an attack on Mr. Betts. We all know him, and so this has not. It's not a personal issue. And again, this isn't easy for us either. This is not a place we like to be. Mr. Betts currently owes the department a little over $4,000 through past the monthly slip fees, the liveaboard fees, and then once you get to a certain point, you start racking up once you're officially terminated, so that was December 6th, you start racking up visitor fees, which then just continue to pile up and pile up and pile up. So that's how we've gotten to this $4,000 mark as of tonight. I can't give you an exact, but as of December 13th at noon, it was about $3,600, and it's over $100 a day for the slip that's being tacked on. So I just want you to know the financial issue that you're dealing with now. So,
but there was no Harbor Commission meeting in December, so that's why we're here. And they were reluctantly to kick me out of the slip or impound the boat. So they've been generous to me also.
Yeah, I think this is a difficult situation for everybody involved. I know that staff has worked hard. I understand and have compassion for your situation as well. We have to make a decision here tonight, and we also have to worry about setting precedents because the Harbor Department has worked with people and they continue to work. This is an example of how hard they work with people to make sure that they get paid. And I know that they go out and they talk to people like you. And
I did talk to Scott Reedman the first week or the second week in December. I did go in and talk to him of the situation and everything.
Yeah, I know that he's worked with you.
Appeal.
Yeah, he has worked with you, and I know that Brian probably has, and the rest of the staff have worked hard to make this thing work. It's just difficult because we have to get paid for the slips that we have in the harbor, and we can't allow everybody to start to fall behind, and that's why there's a very strict set of rules that have been outlined by Mr. Bossy and Mr. Cronman and Mr. Reedman today about the process that we go through to do this and what brings us here today. It's after months and months of working and trying to work these things, and 42 late fees out of 48 months of owning a slip or holding a slip permit. That's extensive, and so it costs not only time and effort and everything on the city, but we have to decide whether we're going to uphold the rule or what we're going to do, and so it's a tough one. Any comments?
Mr. Betts, if I share the fellow commissioner's sympathy and understand, is there any reason for me to believe that we won't be here in 2 months, 4 months, 6 months having this same discussion if we found in your favor?
It's not going to happen again. Like I said, I'm going to sell the slip this summer. I'm going to put it listed up and fix the boat up and let it go. I'm old man now. People don't want to take me fishing anymore, so it gets harder every year when you get my age.
Certainly.
And young guys don't want to work with the older guys like they used to. I can still sew net, which most guys can, but that's part of why they hire me is to make their gear for them.
Right. Understood. Thank you.
All right, thank you.
Is Mr. Betts currently a liveaboard permittee?
Yes, he is currently a liveaboard as well.
Okay. Right. Right. Do you want to make that statement?
Just so the commission knows what I was confirming with Commissioner Sloan is what part of what we're talking about is allowing a person to get current with the intent of transferring their slip. And I brought it up because we had a slip termination brought to us recently where the slip holder made the case that he would get current and that he was going to get on the straight and narrow, and then, as Mr. Cronman mentioned, the next day got current and then transferred his slip and had a financial windfall. There's nothing wrong with that, but it's just so that we're aware that was the last time happened without our knowledge, or dare I say we were hoodwinked. I don't believe that's the case tonight.
It was a somewhat similar situation, and the department had worked with this individual significantly for a significant period of time, and it came to us, same type of thing, and he had already made arrangements to sell the slip the next day. So he had someone funding it and everything else, and so here we, after the department worked with him for months and months and months, we allowed it to happen, and then we got, as Commissioner Kramer mentioned, we got hoodwinked on the deal.
So I don't follow what he gained out of it. Did he not have to pay this?
He was able to reap the profit from transferring a slip and getting.
But
right.
what
but
happens?
Would he not have been able to do that?
Correct.
Yes, if we would have terminated the slip.
Right, then he wouldn't have been able to do
Right.
that.
But what that does is, the department works very hard with these people to get them current
Right.
and everything. And when it goes to termination, at the process that we talked about, Mr. Reedman has the opportunity to waive it, as he did in this case and everything else. And so there's a lot of time and effort that these people put in. And then when they say that enough's enough, then it comes to us. And so what ended up happening in this case was, they did put in all that time and effort over
Right.
the years and months and years, and it finally came to us. We relented, and then the next day they transferred.
Did we
the
lose
slip.
anything out of that? What did we lose?
We lost a lot of time and effort.
Right.
The individual should have done that. It's
long
back
time
to your
before.
original point when you were
Right.
talking with Mr. Betts, and what Bill was saying is that, I'm not sure that the financial resources are there to continue to pay the slip because there's a history of not having it.
Yeah,
And
don't.
so, 6 months is 6 months more of this type of thing,
Right.
and that's what I'm concerned about,
Right. I wasn't aware he was that far behind, that there was that much money owing.
Right.
Well, it's because
I have
of
a
the
question in that regard.
the visitors' fees. He's
Yeah.
on that. But
And
I
that's
don't.
that right there is the question. I want to know how much of that debt that he owes is actually associated with being delinquent, and how much of it would he have owed if he had just kept current? How much would he have paid if he just kept current?
You mean versus the
How much of it is
daily
fees and
transient.
extra charges? And
It's roughly $400 a month, so I'm right now, I'm behind 4 months, which is $1,600, which now I have that in my pocket now.
So it's 4 months in arrears.
oh, okay.
But I could do the appeal
and then-
last month because there's no Harbor Commission.
Well, I don't think the appeal will work on this timeline because I think it was still in that 10-day period where the waterfront director was considering the appeal.
Yeah.
Well, I don't think we should be comparing this situation with a prior one. I think it has to be judged on the basis of this situation, because something happened before doesn't mean it'll happen now. I would like to I'll make a motion to support the appeal.
Do we have a second?
I'll second it.
In favor? In favor?
He's
Yeah.
seconding my motion.
I know. So those in favor of the motion, we're
Yeah.
taking a vote.
I'll vote for it, in favor.
I'll vote in favor.
Against?
Thank you, Commissioners.
I don't know if we've got a
Well,
decision
we don't
here.
have a resolution yet.
Okay.
Yeah, the motion fails for lack of a majority.
Right, right. So the appeal is denied.
Well, the appeal is neither denied nor, I mean, it's 2-2. I mean, what's that come down to?
Yeah. Yeah, I don't know what the,
Dare I say, and I don't mean to sound unsympathetic, but we'll be right back here.
yeah, that's my, I'm concerned about the precedent. You know, I'm concerned about the history and just the financial wherewithal to be able to make these split payments. And especially given the set of circumstances, Mr. Bett, that you described in your current financial situation and the lack of work and things like that. And again, it's not to be unsympathetic. I believe
It's not
there's
the lack of work, it's the lack of getting paid by people that are fishing that are having bad seasons.
Right, right.
It's not, it's, and it is getting worse with every season, it seems like, because there are less and less fishermen and less markets.
Right, right, yeah.
Unless you're in one of the other fisheries, you know.
Yeah.
They're all different. So,
Right.
But I just
Sure.
picked a couple of bad ones this time.
Yeah.
I'd make a recommendation that we uphold slip termination.
Okay. I guess I'll second that. All in favor? Opposed? Abstained? Okay. Motion passes. Unfortunate. Yeah, motion passed.
Yeah.
Okay. Moving ahead to the last item.
Item 10, proposed lease agreement with Santa Barbara Fish Market. Recommendation that Harbor Commission review and recommend City Council approval of a 5-year lease agreement with 2 5-year options with Santa Barbara Fish Market, Inc. at an average initial base rent of $3,262.75 per month for the approximately 738 square feet of first floor retail space designated as 117 Harbor Way, Suite A.
All right. I understand Mr. Colgate's here to speak. Welcome, Brian.
Sorry, Brian. Why don't I just real quick give you the facts and figures, and then we'll let Brian up here to.
Oh, okay. I thought we had the speaker first. Then we. Sorry, I got.
I'll just give you the basic details.
That was my fault.
Not a problem. The Santa Barbara Fish Market has leased space from the Water Department since 2001. Back in 2006, the Santa Barbara Fish Market was chosen by the Harbor Commission and later approved by City Council to lease the current space at 117A Harbor Way through a competitive request for proposals process. The space, again, is located at 117A. It's a very prominent space. Everybody knows where the fish market is. It's crowded every day. They have about 738 square feet of floor area, and then they have a small loft area of just under 400 square feet, totaling about 1,137 square feet. The proposed lease terms, it's a 5-year term with 2 5-year options. The base rent, as Ms. Przinski stated, it would be $3,262.75 for the first year of the lease, increasing to $4,548 a month in year 2 and there on out, subject to annual cost of living increases. As well, the permitted use would be processing, wholesale, and retail sales of fish and other assorted sea products. I should let you know that in discussions with the fish market, Mr. Colgate as well as Laszlo, they are planning some significant capital improvements to the facility to the tune of about $150,000. They want to put in some new freezers, some new refrigerators, some new display cases, and really change the place. They've been talking about it for some time, and they're ready to pull the trigger. They want to be there for the long term. They are a tenant in good standing, and they have no lease issues on file. They pay on time, and we're lucky to have them in the harbor. And with that, I'd be happy to answer any questions. And as you noted, Mr. Colgate's here to say a few words himself.
Okay. Why don't you go ahead, Ron?
Hello, Commissioners. Thank you for the opportunity to be here speaking tonight. And I just wanted to just give my gratitude to be able to, I started the market 15 years ago, and it's been amazing to be able to bridge the gap of the local fishermen and connect our community with local seafood and have a place for not only customers to come, but as well people visiting the harbor that just want to learn about our fisheries and just get a flavor for kind of what Santa Barbara really is and what the fishing community really is. And I feel like Santa Barbara Fish Market is a unique fish market in this in this region in the country and anywhere, just because of kind of how we are so blessed to have the local seafood. And anytime you come to the market, one of my huge goals is to always have local seafood available, and we oftentimes will have a quarter of our fish or more is local, and so that's a huge thing for me, is to really keep that local support. And some of my goals in the future are really to continue to kind of tell that story in more expansive formats with social media and different avenues of that. And I think some of where I've found myself in the past and now as well is working very hard and focusing on keeping the restaurants and the fishermen happy, and I'm not necessarily focusing on telling that story of really who's catching the fish and how it's being caught and the uniqueness of the sustainability of our individual fisheries that we have in Santa Barbara. So right now we have a great opportunity with commercial fishermen of Santa Barbara. With the oil spill was not a good thing by any means, but some of those funds actually, the Chamber of Commerce hired Kim Selko with the commercial fishermen of Santa Barbara, and so she's really focusing on working on some projects with the commercial fishermen and just expanding kind of our local seafood and trying to bridge that gap to the local restaurants. And one of the things that I feel is a huge calling for me personally is to really push healthy, good seafood out into our community and to people around us. And so I think it's a tough business to be in, very competitive, dealing with a lot of restaurants. All the restaurants would like to be carrying the wild salmon that's the very most expensive salmon, but unfortunately a lot of them will go with, let's just for example, Atlantic salmon, which is a cheaper alternative, which is not bad. But so we do carry Atlantic salmon, we do carry the wild salmon. So it's kind of two extremes where I look forward to, or I really take it upon myself to really, for example, in our case, I showcase those items that are going to be more wild caught, more just better, more premium items that are, in my mind, more healthy, more supporting sustainable fisheries. So one of the things that the last thing I would want to do is create a fish market that isn't just focusing on that local aspect and that just the seafood that truly, in my mind, should be getting showcased and have our local ridgeback shrimp, have our local stuff. So I just really appreciate having the opportunity to work with the Waterfront Department. Scott, it's been just a pleasure working with you guys, and just really look forward to continuing that relationship. And we do the Harbor Seafood Festival, and it's a lot of different things. And So it's really exciting to be here talking with you, and just really grateful.
Well, thank you. And I understand that you don't do fish processing there anymore. You've moved that operation somewhere else.
Yeah. So it's been about 2 years now. So we shifted all of the production and distribution to our wholesale customers over to another location. And so so we're doing Saturdays. We still do the cutting for the Saturday fish market, and it was a little bit of a bittersweet, so to speak, to lose that feel, because it really changed things a lot. To lose that hustle and bustle and that just opportunity for customers to really taste the flavor and see like that processing happening like that. But we do have we have a, I don't know if anyone has been in recently, but we do have a screen up with some showcasing our wholesale location, and it does show some processing. And at some point we may actually, I'd like to get maybe a live feed would be really a fun thing to be able to have, to be able to actually see that fish being cut. But the other thing that I really don't take lightly is the quality of that seafood over there. So we're, 3 to 5 times a day we're running new orders over, and it really gives us, that wholesale element gives the market, gives me the ability to really have this seafood that's just fresher than any other market could have. And it's just it's just that relationship is so copacetic, and it's really we're closed Sunday over there, so Sundays are sometimes a little bit of a challenge because we don't want to carry over fish too much. But the key in seafood is just you got to cut it to order and cut it fresh, and so that's kind of my job every day, and I don't take it lightly. So.
All right. Well, thank you very much.
Yeah.
Appreciate it.
Yep.
Thank you.
And he also holds a lease for an office next to the...
That's correct, and that came before your board a number of months ago and was recently approved at City Council. And again, Brian mentioned it briefly, but huge thanks to the Fish Market for all the work they do and help they give us every Harbor and Seafood Festival with the truck and the fish, and they're more than gracious. So it's a big part of what makes that wonderful festival happen. So thanks to them for that.
Okay. Discussion? Comments?
I recommend we make a recommendation that we approve.
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstain? All right. Let's see. New business?
Mr. Chair, Mick Cronman has staff communication for you tonight.
Okay, sorry. Staff.
Excuse me, Mr. Chair and Commissioners, this is along the National Geographic lines. I don't know how many of you have visited the harbor lately or been out on Stearns Wharf, but for the past week, there have been literally hundreds, if not thousands, of tons of anchovies have appeared. And that's what that big blurry blob is. Except for the trap line in the Y of the wharf, all those other little white dots are birds. It's been just a wild scene down there with birds and bait. Literally thousands of tons, shoals of anchovies. Sea lions are pushing them up. You see them breeze up onto the dock by the 30s and 40s. I haven't in my time at the harbor, I haven't seen anything quite like this. The one concern we have is that this amount of bait fish, this happens a lot in places like Santa Cruz Harbor. If they get into the harbor and they decide to stay, they can suck a lot of oxygen out of the water. And we did dissolved oxygen readings last week. They were very, very low and concerning. But there haven't, except for just a few small fish dead over by Marina 2, we haven't seen the vestiges of a full-on die-off yet. We've had good tidal fluctuation. We're hoping that the wind on the back end of this front coming through, especially Monday, it should blow 35 northwest, something like that, will turn the water over and oxygenate things. But anyway, on the good news front, a lot of people have come down to the breakwater. They've been inside the breakwater, outside the breakwater, in the harbor, over by Stearns Wharf, as you can see. And really, it's a good news story for the anchovies, a cold water regime, and they've supplanted the sardines, which are common during the El Nino years. But with all the water running down coming down the watersheds and bringing all the nutrients with it, it tends to bring bait fish close to shore because they live off that nutrient-rich planktonic life, and in turn they end up feeding the bigger fish that feed the bigger fish, and so it's good for ocean health overall. We're just watching it day by day in hopes that we don't have any die-off event. But we thought you'd be interested in seeing this picture and understanding what's going on.
That's great. It's also a sign of a very healthy harbor, too, that we have the ability to sustain that.
That's right.
And
It's the Clean Marina program.
The birds, that the birds that go along with it.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Any other comments?
If, for example, the DO levels were to drop extremely low in the harbor, do you have a contingency plan?
Mr. Chair, Commissioner McCrae, they're as low as I've ever seen them. 5 parts per million, I believe it is, of oxygen is the level that is designated as appropriate for sustaining marine life, and we're seeing readings under 1. And so we're there to the point where you just asked. We don't have like Santa Cruz Harbor has outboard motors on the end of each of their dock fingers that they actually turn on to aerate the water. It's a different kind of they're geographically situated a little more differently than when we are, and they see these events more often. But what we do have is we have a fish die-off response plan. And it's part of our emergency response plan. It's an entire appendix in our emergency response plan. So if, God forbid, this turned into a die-off event like we saw in 2011 in Redondo and Ventura, we're ready to go. We have a plan. We have contact numbers. I actually have fish die-off testing kits for biologists to test the fish to determine the reason they died, and we have a plan for getting them out of the bay. It's not that complex, but we are ready.
All right. Any other commission staff communications? Now that I got it right. Somebody like to move to adjourn?
Make a motion.
Second?
Second.
In favor? Aye. Great. Thank you, everybody.